gangster loans. To make ends meet, they're living in a crowded shared apartment or a home with mom and dad, again. As for the professions, many are rotten with fraud, corruption, and other immoralities. What a quaint word. So that to hold even the lowliest job in the military, police, government, banking, accounting, insurance, healthcare, media, advertising, or the academy, etc., is to swim among crooks and liars, and it's all too easy to become a cynical and sinister asshole yourself. But you're writing about the emerging generation here. And what is that doing to this next generation? Because perhaps unlike their parents, they, from the beginning, don't buy the American dream.
Yes, because they pay too much for college, and they're in debt for life. And basically, I'm describing the Occupy crowd, the people who populate all these Occupy encampments across the country. And those are the same people who are on the streets now protesting Trump.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, I can see the anger and the frustration, but I think they've been misdirected, because with the Occupy movement, it started out with a very clear focus, which was the bankers is the source of the problem, and then it became all over the place.
Right.
Okay, and because it was all over the place, it had no clear agenda. It alienated the people it should have, enlisted, into the movement. So, the growing frustration, the growing despair of growing up without a future is something I see a lot, with the younger generation.
We'll come back to that after this break. Thanks. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll hear more from Lynn Dinh, author of Postcards from the End of America. On Contact with Chris Hedges. Welcome back to On Contact. We'll continue our conversation with Lynn Dinh, author of Postcards from the End of America. So is this frustration, rage, the force that Trump tapped into?
Absolutely. Although I see him as a fraud, as a con man.
Right.
I don't dismiss the people who support him, because I can see his appeal to all these people. It's unfortunate that they are being, they deposited their hope onto this farce.
Right.
In a way, I see him as similar to Obama. Obama was used to appease a certain segment of the population. So Trump is used to pacify the working class, and specifically the white working class, middle America. And he's also used to provide a target, a convenient target, a scapegoat for the left.
Right.
But in the end, Trump is not, he's not the decider, okay? I really don't see him as making any real decisions. I actually wrote about this before he became president. I predicted he was going to win. I said, he is so useful for the elite, in the sense that, he's providing false hope to half the country and providing a convenient target to the other half. So, he's very useful for the ruling class.
Do you expect that at a certain point, that segment of the population that supported him will realize they've been betrayed?
Well, see, here's the funny thing. I think some of them are already known. They already know that they're being conned. Okay, but what happened with Obama? Obama did not change any. Obama was supposed to overturn the Bush fiasco, but he continued a lot of the policies of George Bush,
right.
And yet he was reelected. So I realized that once people have decided they're going to support an icon, a savior, they're going to double down and keep going with it. Because, so I think that a lot of Trump supporters are in denial about how much of a fraud he is.
You have a very bleak view of where we're headed. I mean, into a kind of Hobbesian universe, and a kind of sub-theme throughout all of your writings is this internal collapse of the American empire, the American state. Talk a little bit about that, about where you see us kind of rolling forward.
Well, everywhere I go, okay, every town I visit, you don't see any industries.
Right.
You don't see any factories. You don't see anything. We don't make anything. So, and we in debt. We are really the poorest country on earth, and people don't refuse to see that. We only surviving, we're only looking good because of our military might, because we are an empire. But this farce cannot go on forever. I mean, it should be so obvious that we only chugging along with accounting fraud, with we bullying people into lending us money and sending us stuff that we don't deserve, we haven't earned. So how can we survive this?
You write at one point that hundreds of thousands of Americans have been reduced to living like savages in this self-proclaimed greatest country on earth. And I think one of the things that you see, you live in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, that even those minimum wage jobs where people could barely survive, they're not even there anymore. Even they're gone. And that's something that you see in your book. They're just, people can't even stock shelves anymore.
Yeah. And we talk about like working people.
Right.
Not, I know friends who are working, personal friends who are on food stamp who can barely survive. Because while their wages haven't gone up, and actually in many instances they've gone down, rents have gone up because there's people. There's a certain class of people who can afford to buy homes, who buy multiple homes and jacking up. Here's another thing about immigrants. When people talk about immigrants, they have a picture of a destitute refugee or destitute, a third world immigrant. But a lot of the rich from these other countries are moving in too. In the Bay Area.
What you write about at the end was San Francisco.
Yes.
The Chinese millionaire, billionaire class coming in and buying up the real estate.
Right. So let's rethink this open borders proposal for a second. So you have the rich coming in and making rent unaffordable for many poor Americans, including other immigrants. So I have personal friends who can barely eat right now.
Right. What do you see is happening? Where do you think we're going to go?
I know you've been talking about like a potential revolution from the left.
Well, that's a hope. I think the revolution will probably be fascist, but yeah.
Okay, so the fascist revolution is a counter-revolution, but
right.
Let's don't even call it a fascist revolution. Let's just call it some kind of counter-revolution. Right. So I'm not sure that will happen because the Occupy movement was bigger than the anti-Trump movement, and nothing came of that.
Right.
Right. So you have all these seething middle Americans who are not on the streets, the so-called Trump supporters. They have their guns, they have but I think the government is going to use this internal conflict to become even more of a police state, and that's something you point out all along. So I think that's part of the plan. They want to divide us so they can. But
talk a little bit about what that, how we're going to be reduced to living. What are our lives going to look like?
Increasing poverty. I don't see any way around that. I think very soon, perhaps within this year, Americans are going to discover how poor they really are. Many of my friends are already, barely surviving. So, and so this is like a mirage. We're sitting in Midtown Manhattan.
Right.
This is not going to last. I don't see it lasting because there's no foundation. We're not making anything, and Trump's not going to make America great again. He's not going to bring the factories back. So what's that going to look like?
You talk about a kind of almost clannish antagonisms. That in the breakdown of the country you see coming, a ratcheting up of violence, a ratcheting up of racial conflicts.